Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta White. Shout out to my co-pilot this week, D. Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, New Orleans.
If you know what Thursdays are about, Thursdays are reserved for our Congressman, the one and only Troy Carter. Good morning, Congressman. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. How you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling fantastic. Dr. Wyatt, how are you today? Will, how you doing, brother?
Fabulous, Kappa man.
Oh, Lord,
all
here we go.
All right. Everybody should be.
Here we go. So, Congressman, listen, I was introing you as I always do, and then they handed me this paper telling me who my guests were. And I know you had something to do with setting me up this morning. And I'm not going to give away the surprise until the surprise could be given away. But I'm excited to talk to you this morning. And namely with this piece on the president having the authority to deport United States citizens. Can we talk about that?
It is. I had the opportunity to lead a delegation of senators, a senator, and members of Congress. Senator Markey from Massachusetts, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts, Jim McGovern from Massachusetts, and my dear friend and ranking member of Homeland Security, Benny Thompson from Mississippi, to go to Jena, Louisiana, and to go to Bizio, Louisiana, to do a wellness check on the individuals that have been sent to Louisiana in the Trump's attempt to deport these individuals, not because they broke any laws, but because they didn't like what they had to say. Mahmoud Khalil, who said to me and others, and his history proves it because we researched what he said, that he is not anti-Semitic at all. He is not pro-Hamas at all. He merely wants to ensure that his homeland of Gaza, Palestine, is being treated humanely. And who wouldn't do that? And then, secondly, Rumeysa Ozturk, a graduate student at Tufts who's preparing to defend her dissertation for a PhD, merely wrote an op-ed in her school newspaper that Trump didn't like. She's also a student visa holder. Mr. Khalil is a green card holder. They are in our country legally. They've broken no laws. Now, here's the magic of our First Amendment. Freedom of speech is not conditioned on if you like that speech, if you agree with that speech, if you subscribe to that philosophical or theoretical action behind the speech. No, it is not conditioned. It is free speech. The second part of the greatest violation is the Fifth Amendment, which is due process. Neither of the people that I mentioned were given due process. I'm going to ask one quickly, give you a third one, which is Wendy Brito, who is from Marrero. Wendy is married to an American citizen. She has 3 children that were born in the U.S., which makes them United States citizens. She went in for her routine checkup with ICE, as she customarily does. She volunteers at her kid's school. Her husband works 2 jobs, American citizen. She went in, they detained her, and they sent her to Bizio. No opportunity to talk to their lawyers. You know, if this is happening to Americans and to citizens, we should all be very, very afraid. In the case of Rumeysa Ozturk, she wrote a letter, an op-ed in her school newspaper. See, the danger here is that if U.S. citizens are being deported because you don't like what they said, it's unconstitutional. But here's the biggest part now, because our checks and balances depend on our ability to have each of our separate but co-equal branches doing their jobs. The Supreme Court, in a 9-0 ruling, you don't see very many 9-0s in this Supreme Court, in a 9-0 ruling, ruled that the president was out of line and could not deport this individual without due process. Heretofore, today, as we stand, the president has still denied those directives to bring him back. And when we talk about constitutional crises, yeah, we're in a constitutional crisis. Because when the president has now pressed to test the waters, the Supreme Court told him to do something. He so far is defying it. We're in trouble because the only arbiter we have left to determine its constitutionality and to enforce what appears to be a president that wants to be a king, a dictator, an oligarch. The last test we have is the Supreme Court to stop him. And so we're waiting with bated breath. We're putting pressure every single day. Do your jobs. And this is why the community has to be a part of that third C that you often hear me talk about. The community has to be engaged and be a part of the process of having these discussions. And that's why I'm so grateful to you and WBOK and our incredible listening audience who tune in to get updates, to share where we are, what we're doing, and how we're fighting back. But the Supreme Court, which is the ultimate arbiter of what happens at this point, has to step up and do the job. Yesterday in the Judiciary Committee, there was an amendment. There was an amendment that was offered that was very plain and clear, and the amendment simply said that no U.S. citizen shall be deported as a part of not being in this country. You know what? Write down party lines. Democrats voted for it. Republicans voted against it. How do you vote against an amendment that reaffirms what the United States Constitution says? You cannot deport an American citizen. They voted against it. What does that say to you? What is your message? What are they up to? What are they up to when you think it's okay? Not because you broke a law, but because I didn't like what you said. In 1933, Nazi Germany had a fellow doing the same stuff. Hitler. You look at the first 100 days of this president's service as president. He has started shutting out the mainstream media. Only media that he likes is allowed to come to his press conferences. Controlling the military, getting rid of a four-star general who was a celebrated four-star general who happened to be African-American, but beyond that was the most prepared with a stellar resume and removed for no reason. Getting rid of other leaders in the military who would push back and replacing them with people who would be rubber stamps. Getting rid of programming that would secure our intelligence and having a Secretary of Defense who transmits classified information on a signal chat, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Congressman, how do we deal with a president whose team acknowledges they made a mistake with deporting a man and is ordered by the court to bring the man back, and they're ignoring the court order? It seems like this is the development of a pattern. We want you to rule the way we expect you to rule, and if you don't, no matter what you say, we're going to do what we do.
And that's exactly what I just said just moments ago, Will. This is what this president is doing. He is defying what the Supreme Court says, because just like they want to deport people when you don't like what they say, he wants to ignore you when he doesn't like what you say.
So
what's the next step? I mean, because this is what the man is doing.
But before we get to the next step, Congressman, there's a caller on the other line that we're going to add to the call, And I know you had a lot to do with this one. I can't even gather
And
myself.
I suspect that this person that's going to come on the phone will have a lot to say about what we're talking about right now. It's a very dear friend of mine, my little sister from the great state of Texas, who is a fireball leader in the Democratic caucus, a fireball leader in our country, a voice to be reckoned with, a powerful sister who I promised my other little sister, Dr. Wyatt, that I was going to get her to come on to the world-class WBOK. And, Will, you get a treat today because now you get to hear the voice that's going to come on next, who I'm so incredibly proud of, my baby sister, the outstanding member from Texas, the outstanding Jasmine Crockett.
Oh, my God.
Hey! Good morning,
I
good
didn't
morning,
know
good
who you were
morning.
talking
Good
about,
morning,
but okay,
Congresswoman.
I'm here.
Listen.
Good morning, y'all.
I don't know if you know how I feel about you.
Her schedule is crazy as all get out, but she committed that she's going to be here. She's here. She is a dynamic leader. We could not be
Listen.
more proud of her.
I know I am, and I love my congressman, but he's gonna have to take a back seat today because
Listen,
this
I'm
is
gonna
everything
sit
right
back
now.
and enjoy the ride. It's all your show,
when,
baby.
when he when he says that he is my big brother, he really means that. You know, a lot of people say a lot of stuff, but
Yeah,
this is somebody that always has my back, my front, and my sides. So, you know, it's only certain people, number one, that can get me up when I'm supposed to be packing, and get me doing something else. But no, whatever he ever asks of me, I'm always down because he always has my back. So great to be here with y'all. Hello, Louisiana. Okay. And yeah, let's get to it.
let's get to it. Well, listen, I want to welcome you to the Good Morning Show. I'm Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. I'm excited to talk to you. My co-pilot this morning is the Will Sutton. So we have questions, and one of the questions we'll ask our Congressman Troy Carter is the question I actually want him to propose to you, which is, what do we do with a president who defies?
So we've reached a point where we have three branches of government, supposedly equal branches of government. But this president seems to be in a place where we want the courts to rule the way we want you to rule. And then if you don't do it, we're going to ignore you, even though you're a branch of government that should have a say. Now, we may agree or disagree with court rulings, but in the past, for many years, we have fought about different court rulings, but in the end, that is the ruling. Trump seems to be ignoring that. And if he's ignoring that on these deportation issues, how are we going to deal with him?
Will, you are so nice.
He is.
You're like, he seems to be ignoring the law. No, not this president, not the criminal, not the 34 count convicted criminal who had other cases that were pending, not the guy that had been found liable in so many civil courts, not the guy that is currently shaking down law firms and shaking down various TV outlets, not that guy. I'm sure none of us would ever imagine that this would be the guy that would violate the law. So, frankly, we're in a constitutional crisis. In fact, I heard your congressman talking about some of the things that happened in judiciary, which I was in judiciary till about 11 p.m. last night, where we were proposing amendment after amendment after amendment. And some of them, in fact, one of them specifically dealt with, because right now we're going through reconciliation, which is all about money, basically. And so we were basically saying that if certain things were done or not done, then it would trigger for certain funds to stop going certain places, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole issue around deporting U.S. citizens, because ICE, the I in ICE stands for immigration. Well, there are no immigration issues when it comes to, say, someone who is a citizen, right? And so the idea that we would continue to pay ICE to deport U.S. citizens seems a bit contradictory. So we know that Elon Musk didn't do his job. Actually, he did what he set out to do, which was not what they proclaimed he would do, which would be to provide actual savings. So we feel like we can save the American taxpayer some dollars by just simple amendments like don't go, and it's not even deporting because you can't deport somebody who's U.S. Don't go kidnapping or disappearing people to a whole other country. Like, don't do that and think that we're going to pay you. In fact, we found that in their proposed markup, which is what we were doing, they literally had information saying that there was all this money that they're proposing in bonuses for those that work for Homeland. And when they looked at how much it would be, it amounted to a bonus of approximately $44,000 per person at the agency. A bonus of $44,000. And we're talking about people that are terrorizing people, kicking down doors, going and breaking into cars, grabbing U.S. citizens, throwing them into custody, taking people and sending them out the country. And obviously, they don't have anything to do with due process. But nevertheless, the list goes on and on and on. And what we have to really reckon with is that while the founders' intent was truly profound in the things that they did, and they never anticipated that the American people would go out and elect a thug like we have, we did. So things are a little broken right now because there is a bit of common decency and common sense that is built into the fabric of what we are supposed to be doing. And so let me just say I applaud the courts because even his Supreme Court has decided to stand up to him. The question is, as we are now going through our very first iteration of what looks like it may be a contempt action, it will be interesting to see what happens. That is going to spell out everything about what goes next, because the way that you deal with somebody who decides to intentionally ignore a court order is through contempt. And one of the ways that you can hold somebody in contempt is by jailing them. So we will see how the courts decide to move and how the administration decides to react. Right now, I had no idea or had no thoughts about who could physically be jailed if we were going to go there. But it seems like now Trump did an interview here recently where he specifically was talking about he could pick up the phone and make a call and get the man back. So it sounds like he may end up in front of a judge in a second to explain why he is not doing it if he knows that he can do it. So this is one of those things that will continually be developing. But if the courts fail to hold anybody in contempt and if they continue to violate the law, I think that we only have a few options. One is to go after these attorneys that are working on his behalf and not actually doing what they swore their oath to do. So we may have to go after their bar cards, which would mean that they can't go into the courts and can't continue to do this. And that would send a message that if you are going to pledge your loyalty to him versus the Constitution, you won't have the ability to practice law anymore. But we will have to get very creative, think outside the box, and most importantly, we are going to have to participate in elections.
Well, which brings me to this question: with his overall approval rating is tanking. My question is, how is it that the members of Congress who represent their constituents all over this country are not listening to what their constituents are saying if they are saying they're disapproving of this president in every measure that you can measure a president? And why aren't the people in the House and the Senate listening to the constituents who elected them to serve the will of the people?
Well, I'm not one of them.
We
so
know
I
you
don't know
are.
why but I will tell you that there are those that are afraid that they are about to lose the House, and if they don't lose the House, then I don't know what is going on. These people have decided to come to Congress and not represent the interests of the people that they serve. If I'm being perfectly honest, it's been a long time since the Republicans have represented the interests of the people that they serve. They have relied on a lack of information getting to a lot of their constituency, because when we look at it overall, overwhelmingly, Republicans represent rural America. And rural America, things are a little tricky, right? Like, we know that when it came down to things such as making sure that the bipartisan Infrastructure Act could be passed, which included in that was broadband, what they were trying to do, and this was led by Democrats, even though you had a couple of Republicans that joined in, they were trying to do things such as make sure that they increased access to communication abilities. I mean, here it is, we're on the radio. We know that in a lot of our rural areas, for the longest, they have relied on radio to get a lot of their information. They still use AM radio a lot. And so when you're talking about, like, being able to really access some of that stuff, they really weren't getting as much good internet access, right? And now it's almost like it's a double-edged sword, because it's like we wanted to make sure that people just had better access. But heck, now even on the internet, they've got all of these very right-wing, lying people out there that are inundating them with lies, right? And so because of just the way that rural America is kind of set up, it is more cumbersome and more difficult to communicate. But I think that we have to go tell the real stories. We have to tell them that the reasons that their hospitals have been shutting down for years has been because of Republican policies in general. And now it's going to be absolutely front and center as they cut Medicaid and Medicare, and they go after SNAP benefits, where rural America is using more of those than urban America, even though the face of SNAP benefits for many of them is somebody that is in inner city urban America. So I think that this is probably the best education that some of their constituents can get about the fact that they actually have been passing policies for a very long time that have done nothing but harm them.
And too, Congresswoman, I want to ask you about this idea that's been floating around, that the trucking industry is possibly going to come to a complete halt, like the end of May, the beginning of June. And what does that mean for food insufficiency for this country? Like, people are going to starve if the trucking industry comes to a complete standstill. What can we do to turn the tide there?
Well, I hate to say it, but I don't even know if it's going to be that long. I got in very late from judiciary, and I wanted to catch up on what was happening in the real world. And so I was able to stay up for a little bit just trying to catch up. And I ran across a number of reports that are talking about the ports.
Yes.
You're talking about the trucks.
Yes.
Well, everything comes from the ports in the first place, right? So, you know, the idea that we haven't educated people on the fact that we really are a global economy, everything doesn't happen in the United States and then stay in the United States. There's a lot of incoming and outgoing overall. And so when we aren't getting things at the ports, and then at the ports they are picked up by trucks, and they are usually either continue on their path on a truck and or train, right?
Yeah.
So literally it is, and or planes, right? So we have all of these modes of communication or transportation to be able to move goods in and out of the United States. And so if the ports are already empty, I literally saw like video footage. That is not a good sign. And we know that Walmart and Target and other big box stores, the leaders, the CEOs, went to sit down with this president a week or two ago to warn him that literally the shelves will look like they looked during COVID. And so here's the deal. We went through some crazy times during COVID because our supply chains were really messed up, because everything came to a halt because of the pandemic. It wasn't any individual's fault. It was the global pandemic. Well, right now, let me tell you, it's not a global pandemic. It is one individual's fault. And I say it's his fault, but let me just say this. It is one individual that was the catalyst. It is the fault of everybody that stands by and is complicit. And that is those members of the House as well as the Senate that you talked about, because honestly, he does not have the authority to invoke these tariffs in the first place. He invokes basically emergency fake powers, which we do have emergency powers. Let me not say that those are fake. He faked the emergency to invoke the powers in the first place. And we had an opportunity. There was a vote in the Senate to actually revoke that and take the power back so that we could stop him and save us. And unfortunately, the vote was 49-49. And I will applaud those 3 Republican senators that did vote with the Democrats, but we needed one more vote. And we could have stopped him, or at least begun the process, because the Senate would have started it and then it would have had to come to the House.
And I also, because I follow you, by the way, so I also saw a video you put up about members of Congress giving the president the ability to now deport United States citizens. Can you talk to us about what happened inside the chambers?
Yeah. So the thing was, like, let me not conflate it. So what they did is they stood with him in allowing him to do it. Now the law is clear. You can't do it. Okay.
Right.
Like, the law is clear that it can't be done. That is constitutional. I mean, I don't even know where you send a non-citizen. They don't want to take other people. They're not letting people dump people over here. So I don't know how you think you can dump a citizen somewhere. So, whatever. But what we were trying to do, because we are in reconciliation, is at least say we are not going to fund this type of activity. And they voted against it. They're okay with funding it. And I'm like, it's illegal. Like, why would y'all fund that, right? So that was the thing. We put it up because everything that we're doing is tied to money in some way as we're going through these markups, as we're going through reconciliation. And this is where, the committees really to watch on this are going to be the Agriculture Committee, because the SNAP benefits, they've been charged with cutting $220 billion out of ag. The only place to get it is SNAP benefits. So, I mean, it may not matter that we won't have food because they're trying to take the money away for people to be able to get the food anyway. And then the other one is going to be energy and commerce, and that is where the Medicaid cuts will have to come, because they have to cut $880 billion, and that is the only place that you can get it. So those are the real committees to kind of watch. We did a lot of interesting amendments to try to recoup some money and try to work to do some things in judiciary. And the things, they literally would not even speak to defend their actions. We started calling on individual Republicans to try to get them to speak, and they would not even debate our amendments. Like, they refused because they have nothing to say. There is no defense for the things that they were voting for. I mean, we asked them to, we had an amendment as it relates to due process and not funding, this idea that we will do things that have to do with violating due process. They wouldn't do it. We had things about them not voting or not funding when there is a situation where they violate a court order. If they decide they're going to violate, as we were talking about earlier, a court order, and we were like, you got to defund it. They didn't want to do that. But they did add over $1 billion in new spending for lawyers for ICE. So I'm like, oh, okay. And they do need it, because all they're doing is breaking the law. So they going to need a lot of lawyers. But I don't want to pay for that.
Do you remember who the 3 Republicans were who did not go along with things?
On the Senate side, I know it was Murkowski, and that's all I got for you.
Okay, no problem. I'll look it up.
She's one that we can typically look to.
Mm-hmm.
So, Congressman, what is our call to action? Like, how do we help you guys do what needs to be done? I know our congressman has 3 C's, talking about Congress, the courts, and community, which we push here heavily at WBOK. But what is it from your purview? What is something we can do? Do we call all of these individual representatives? Do we email them? What call of action can we put together as constituents on the ground to help push what you guys are trying to do in Congress?
And in my honest opinion, is education. I mean, the numbers are clear. Those that are educated with facts and the truth, they vote one way, right?
Yeah.
And so what I tell people all the time is that nobody really wants to listen to a politician. They always look at us and they believe that there is some alternative, like ulterior motive that we have, right? And so they're just like, oh, that's their job, And I used to go out and say things like, some people don't want to listen to politicians because they believe that some of them are liars, and well, many of them are, right? And some of them are criminals, and well, many of them are. So I get it, right? But they will listen to their sorority sister, their fraternity brother, their mother, their brother, their sister, their church member, their coworker. And so it's important that those of us that are doing the research, that we not just hold it or talk to our other politically engaged friends, because everyone around you, they may not be politically engaged, but they are politically impacted. And so it is important that we have these conversations. And I will tell you that don't ever underestimate people's aptitude or appetite for some of this information. I had an opportunity, the last thing I'll say before I let y'all go, to go and speak at one of my schools. And I tell people all the time I'm a bad politician, because here it was the first week of our 2-week recess, and I only had one day in district. But the one thing I absolutely wanted to do was go and talk to kiddos at one of my schools. I don't have kids of my own, so I can't go home and take a check and know kind of how children are feeling and what's going on. And so I go into one of my junior high schools, and I'm talking to kids. I went into classrooms of 6th graders and 7th graders, and I'm asking them about, what it is that they're hearing about, if they're worried about anything and that kind of stuff. Every classroom I went into, they talked to me about tariffs. Now, I can guarantee you, I don't really remember much about junior high, but I can guarantee you that I wasn't talking about tariffs. And I probably didn't fully understand them in junior high. And to be perfectly honest, that was the only thing that Donald Trump was really honest about on the campaign trail. He made it clear that he had this whole idea about putting tariffs on people. And to be perfectly honest, the average American did not understand it either.
Right.
So the fact that we have 6th and 7th graders that are talking about tariffs, and I'm like, okay, let me see if these kids know it. And I'm asking, why y'all talking about tariffs? Like, y'all ain't paying for nothing? Like, what is happening, right? And so their parents have been talking to them, right, about the tariffs. And this is before he said, maybe the kids won't get $30, they'll get $2. This is before all of this. This is like 2 weeks ago. So in one of the classes, because I always do this thing where I pick a little president and I set up a house and I set up a Senate and we go at it. So the little president in one of my classes, I said, what is a tariff? Explain to me what you believe is happening. He said, well, my mama was about to buy this Mercedes. And he said, and the price went up. The price changed a lot. And so she had to settle for a Ford, and she wasn't happy about it, but, that's what she had to do. And I was like, man, okay, you get it.
Yes.
You get it. So no, like it has been, I think that we have a really good opportunity to engage in a deeper level of conversation with everyone around us about how global supply chains work, and how when we went through COVID and how when we were coming out, Joe Biden really was successful, even though there still was pain that we were feeling. We are now understanding how bad the pain really could have been, and that we really were recovering at a better rate. We literally were at the top of our class as it relates to recovering and getting the supply chains back up, in the legislation that members like Troy Carter voted for to make sure that we could get the Chips and Science Act, which was actually bringing manufacturing back to this country. We know that there's a multi-billion-dollar facility in Ohio, who did not vote the right way, but in Ohio from Samsung that they were bringing. There is a multi-billion-dollar facility that is going out in Arizona. There's a multi-billion-dollar facility going into Texas and other places around this country, because he knew how to incentivize people to come and build chips here. So next time, if there's a next time with the pandemic, that meant that our supply chains would not be strained as much, because we would not be solely reliant on getting the vast majority of our chips out of Taiwan or out of China, right? And so this was about actually doing something, and it's the high tech and it's the good paying jobs, right? Like, this is the type of things that you want to bring here, because we don't want to tell people, yes, we got new jobs, but they are just more working poor jobs. That's not doing anything for people.
On education and engagement, the State of the People Power Tour started in Atlanta. They were in Durham yesterday. They're coming to New Orleans next week. Will you be with us?
I am only in Nolans. Yes, I will be. That is the only stop I'm doing.
Well, listen, I am looking forward to personally meeting you myself, and I want to thank you for your bravery in Congress and what you do, not just for the folk of Texas, but for all of us who are watching. You stand up and unapologetically speak truth to power, and you have an absolute fan in me, and I don't fan out behind anybody. but I want you to know.
I appreciate that, but I'm going to tell you that you are not a fan, but we are sisters in the fight.
Absolutely. And I just want, I really, really don't want you to feel like you're alone. I'm in Louisiana, but we got your back over here. We pay attention. And just like we hold our congressmen down, we hold you down too. So thank you for taking part of your morning to share it with us and our listening audience. We appreciate you so very much, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
I told you guys would have a dynamic treat with this outstanding member of Congress from Texas 30. She's a star. She's passionate. She's real. You can touch her. You can feel her. She's the truth.
Yeah, thank you for that, Congressman. We appreciate you too. I'm sorry I had to put you on the back burner today, but
I gladly listen.
What a gift! What a gift!
I gladly took the back burner because I promised my sister Alicia, and I'm giving you a shout out, Alicia. I know you're listening. That we were going to bring my little sister here to impart her wisdom, her love, and let me just tell you this: everything you heard today is what she is and who she is 24/7. When I tell you she is a star, she's a star in the best way because it's not about her. It's all about the people.
Yeah.
And she steps up. She speaks out. I'm so proud of her, so happy. My son is going to be graduating this week and next weekend, so I will not be in for the State of the People, but Jasmine will be there to speak. And I will be very well represented by having her here. My youngest son will be graduating from D. Howard University, and so I will not be able to be present. But I will be there in spirit through my little sister, Jasmine Crockett, who's an outstanding lawyer, activist, person, people, fighter, a giant among many. So bless you, Jasmine, for spending some time with us when I know your time is very premium. Bless WBOK. You, Dr. Wyatt, and Will Sutton, and all the incredible listeners at WBOK. I promised you I'd get her, and I know you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Congressman. Have a blessed the rest of your day.
God bless you all.
All righty. Listen, we got to go to break, y'all. I'm full. I could go home right now. But when we come back, we're going to talk to the one and only Kathy Hamburg from the Amistad Research Center. Y'all stay with us right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about
all day long.